Monday morning, Jonesboro. This is meteorologist Tim Root with your KLEK 102.5 FM weather. It'll be partly sunny today. Temperatures near 80, a north wind 10 to 15. Mostly clear, cool tonight, upper 50s and low 60s for the low, light north winds. A nice spring day Tuesday, mostly sunny, 75 to 80, light northeast winds. Wednesday should be mostly sunny near 80 or so, and it looks like those temperatures will stay in the 70s Thursday with mostly sunny skies. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. 6 of 7 men accused of the rape, torture and murder of an 8-year-old Muslim girl in Indian-administered Kashmir have been found guilty. Hong Kong says it won't drop a plan to allow extradition to mainland China despite huge protests. The UK and South Korea have signed a preliminary post-Brexit trade deal, and Russian journalists are uniting in support of an independent reporter who was arrested on Friday.
It's 9:01.
Community Conversations is brought to you by Arkansas Early Learning, offering no-cost childcare in Jonesboro and Northeast Arkansas. Applications at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5 FM, good morning to you on your Monday. It's June 10th, 2019. This is Community Conversations. Kiddo Wonder is in the studio with you. Once again, I'm filling in for Kubila, and we definitely want to thank everyone who has kept Kubila in their thoughts and prayers. She is doing better, but she's taking one more day off just to kind of catch up on some work that she got behind on, but hopefully and prayerfully she will be back in the studio tomorrow. Joining us today are members of Team Jonesboro. We have Mr. TJ Thompson, Mr. Brian Richardson, Mrs. Mary Margaret Johnson, and Mr. Jerry Morgan. And of course, since this is a political topic, I do have to give a disclaimer. KLEK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council does not endorse nor support any particular issue. I'm getting a little tongue twisted. Position on this issue. However, this is provided for informational purposes only, and no compensation was provided. And also, in the interest of fair disclosure, Mr. Morgan is employed by First National Bank, which is the sponsor of our First National Bank Tower, and I am on the list of Team Jonesboro. If you look on the list of supporters, you will find my name on there. I did sign up for the list because I wanted to get more information about what they were doing, but I will not campaign neither for nor against this proposal. So now we got all of that out the way. So we're going to go ahead and bring in our panel for discussion. So kind of catch everyone up on where we are up to this point. As you all may know, the Team Jonesboro proposal is a proposal for a 1-cent sales tax, with half going towards police and fire and the other half going towards quality of life projects. They're also proposing an advisory board that would advise the city council on projects if this tax passed. The election is scheduled for September 10th. The first reading of the proposal was this most recent city council meeting, and at the city council meeting tomorrow will be the second reading. So, gentlemen and ladies, so go ahead and give your thoughts on where we are in this process.
Just a point of clarification, the second city council reading will actually not be tomorrow. It will be next Tuesday.
Okay. So what action was taken at the previous city council meeting? Because I remember there was some discussion at that meeting.
At the last city council meeting, what we did was the first reading of the three ordinances that were placed before the city council, and they will come back for the second reading on June 18th. And during that time, we certainly expect to have.
I got my Tuesdays mixed up.
Yes, yeah, it's okay. I think that what you're going to see on the 18th will be similar to this past Tuesday, and that'll be a large group of support for the Team Jonesboro initiative, much like every other public hearing, because it's clear to me and clear to everybody involved that this has become a movement, and that people are ready and willing to support more amenities for Jonesboro, more public safety, and a stronger community.
I think it's important.
Remember, y'all got to share that mic, so pass it down to Jerry.
There we go. I think also it's important to note with the city council, we're not asking them to endorse the tax or the proposal for the ordinance for the tax. All we're doing is asking them to allow this to go to the voters to decide. This isn't asking them, hey, are you okay with this tax? The way this is written and what we're asking them to do through the 3 readings is to ask them to send it to the voters for an election on September 10th. So,
all right, and Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, it might be good just to to talk about the process just a little bit.
Okay.
So, anytime something like this comes out, if it goes to council, it has to go through 3 readings, which usually takes a little over 6 weeks because the meetings are on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. So that that gives ample time for public input, for everybody to know what's going on. Obviously, something like this is going to get a lot of media attention, so there's even more. The buzz around it's pretty heightened. Some stuff kind of goes through pretty quietly, but this is not going to be one of those things. But so we're a third of the way through the process with the city council, so there'll be two other readings of it before it is a yay or a nay on getting the election. So.
And did you have any comments you'd like to add, Mrs. Jackson?
This isn't tied to any other big election, so it's important for people to take part in this and to get out and let them know what they want for the city. We hope that we're going to have a strong turnout for this election on September 10th.
And since you brought that up, one of the criticisms of the proposal was that why do this for a special election? Why not save it for the general election? In fact, I've even seen comments that said that this was done on purpose because special elections usually have a lower turnout and that it would be more likely that supporters would vote for this. So when you all hear that, what is your response to that?
I think it's important to note that there's not another general election until next year. The reason we're doing it this time is to get it out in front of the voters. The reason we're doing it in September is that way if this does get approved, that we can the funds would start coming into the city on January 1. And part of that, it's important for our elected officials to be able to look at the budgeting needs and start these projects now. And that's kind of the important part, and that's why we're doing it this time.
Okay. And Brian, look, we want to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this initiative is just too important to be buried at the bottom of a general election ballot. By having it, on a special election, it allows for a very clear and open conversation about what this means for Jonesboro. Whenever you start getting into a November ballot of 2020, which is over a year away, I think there's issues in Jonesboro that just simply can't wait that long, because not only would this be passed in November of 2020, but it would be the second quarter, if we're lucky, of 2021 before a dime of this money or this new revenue can be used to help better our community.
Okay. Now, another criticism that I heard, because I want to kind of give you all the opportunity just to respond to some things that are out there, is they said, well, we like the police and fire, but we're not so sure about the quality of life. Why not split, have the vote, but vote on the quality of life and the police and fire separately? What is your response to that? Anybody?
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, the more that we looked into this initiative, the more it became very clear that you simply cannot separate quality of life and public safety. They're one and the same. What we can't do is pass a quality of life based amenities issue and not be able to keep those safe. And without improving quality of life in Jonesboro, I don't think that you can build a jail big enough, because we have to provide other outlets of recreation and entertainment and invest in our community, invest in our children, because every amount of investment that we make in the youth in Jonesboro will pay off larger dividends in the long run.
Absolutely. We are speaking with members of Team Jonesboro. If you have a question or a comment for anyone who is affiliated with this group, you can give us a call at 870-277-1080. Again, that phone number is 870-277-1080, or you can leave your questions or your comments on our Facebook live feed. Another point of contention concerning the proposal was the advisory group that would be formed that would vet the proposals. There's been some people who had concerns about diversity, which we talked about on the last time that you all were here. There was some questions on how much power they would have and what the selection process would be. So let's just kind of go over again how that process would work to just kind of clear things up.
I'll answer that one. Or help answer it. On that, the way this is set up with the ordinance, there'll be 9 members placed on that committee. I think it's important to note that the process will be, the mayor will make the appointments and the council will vote on those. The important part of this process is, those committee members will be seated before this election. The projects will be discussed before the election. I think it's very important to show that this committee also will be a very transparent committee. This committee will have 2 councilmen on it, which will require that everything be done out in the open, FOIable public meetings. That way we can get public input. Again, at this point, what we're trying to do is get this to the process of going to the voters. And I think it's important to note that every bit of this will be out in the open, be completely transparent, and be able to show, that we're basically doing everything in our power to make sure this is led by the citizens and that the citizens will have a voice in it. So I hope that answers a little bit, but Mary?
Go ahead.
These people on the committee have not been determined. So if you have any interest whatsoever, you need to contact the mayor and let them know that you would like to serve on the committee. They're looking for people that have the time and the interest to take part in this very important program, and let them know. Get involved.
And I think I'll just throw this out there. I think this would probably help for people who may be on the fence or unsure if that process was go ahead and put out there, if the mayor's office would put something out there either on the city social media or website or through traditional media that applications for the committee are now open. This is what we're looking for. This is the criteria, if there's going to be any criteria, and people could then start signing up for it. Because right now there's still a little bit of confusion because they said it's going to be a committee and then nobody really knows how to apply for it. So I think that would go a long way towards helping if that process was outlined and put into place. I do have this question. Will the committee be seated before the 3 readings are complete, or is it going to be after the 3 readings?
Well, the committee can't be officially established until that ordinance is approved by the city council. So as soon as that is approved, then that will allow for the committee to then be investigated, I guess you would say, and sat by the mayor. So until that ordinance is actually approved by city council, there can't be any official action on that because the power has not been allowed to make the process happen.
Now, once that process does happen, will Team Jonesboro do everything that you all can to ensure that everyone knows about the selection process, the application process, even though you all will not actually choose the members, but make sure that it is well publicized so that people from a variety of diverse backgrounds can apply and have the potential to become a part of the committee?
Absolutely. I think that in our short track record of being a movement initiative, we've made it pretty clear that we want this process to be open and available to everybody. We want the community involvement. We want community feedback. So I think that just kind of lends itself to the process that we've already been doing. Anything that we can do to help promote that and get it out there, that we're certainly going to take advantage of that. For us, it's a win-win. We get more people involved.
And there's, from the very beginning, this whole effort is about oneness. There's no, when you do something like this, it's a grassroots effort. It's citizen-led. It's not government-led. It's not business-led. It's citizen-led. And the things that we're looking at, both on the public safety side and the quality of life side, it's for everyone. It's not for this group or this interest or that interest. I mean, these things will benefit the entire community. And yeah, one person may like a project better than another project, but it's not this. None of this is designed with any exclusivity in mind at all. In fact, it's right the opposite. It's designed. Its makeup, its nature, its foundation is built on the idea of community and bringing people together and having things to help us all. I think one of kind of the cliche buzzwords that's been going around is high tide raises all ships, and that, we're trying to put more water in the harbor here. We're not trying to float one ship over another.
Okay, what has the feedback been since you all launched? You all called this a movement, and of course, there's been the first city council meeting where the idea was proposed, and then the most recent one where there was further presentation. But now that this is out in the open, what are people telling you guys about it? What kind of feedback you got, both positive and negative?
Well, I think it's important to note, first and foremost, the majority of the people working on this committee that's worked on it so far have full-time jobs. And I think that's the neat thing about it. We're not career politicians. We're not able to spend 100% of our time on this. But the other side of that, it's been overwhelming, the support that we are getting. I mean, I get constant emails, texts, phone calls, people in the community that I don't even know that just say, "Man, I really appreciate what you're doing. We're supporting this 100%. This is the right time for us in Jonesboro, and we feel very, very good about it." So I think the response has been overwhelming, to say the least, from everybody. Wouldn't y'all say the same?
Just from a numbers standpoint, our Facebook page has been just, I guess, about 2 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, and we pretty quickly surpassed 1,200 followers on Facebook, and just in the last week and a half, our list of public endorsements has grown to, I believe, right around 600 people. So it's been overwhelming is the right word, but I would say another great word would be that it's really been moving to see how the community is coming together for this effort. There's obviously an appetite for more quality of life in Jonesboro and a safer city to enjoy those amenities in. And I think that we have kind of hit this at just the right time. People are ready for more.
And when you talk about that, one of the things that comes up as far as the quality of life, and as you mentioned, it being tied to public safety, and as you know, there's been in the news lately, been some incidents that have happened, and of course, because of one particular incident, the Jonesboro Police Department actually has 10 officers on leave, which is, Chief Elliott has said that, he'll make it work with what he has, but obviously it's going to affect the department. And of course, both Chief Elliott and Fire Chief Miller have stated that they're going to need more in order to continue to provide the level of service that they are providing and provide additional services as well. So obviously they are in support of it. So how does that make you all feel, knowing that what you are doing could potentially be a good help to the police and fire department?
Well, and this is going to kind of go back to the whole together or separate issue a little bit too. But people have different viewpoints on what quality of life means. I mean, you talk about a project or whatever, you're either going to be, yeah, I'll use that, no, I won't, whatever it is. Everyone's opinion is different when you're talking in that realm. But when you're talking about public safety, everybody's opinion is the same. If we don't have a safe community, it doesn't matter what we build. If we don't have a wholesome community, people aren't going to want to live here. If we don't have, if you can't feel that you can be in the community and be safe and be protected, and that's both police and fire. I think the police side of it probably gets a little more attention because of the stuff that's going on, the stuff that we've seen this year, especially. But the fire side of it's very real too, and that's one that you don't think about until you need it, maybe as much. But we're in a very unique situation here. I firmly believe we have the brightest days ahead of us, but we also have a specific set of challenges, and the protection side of this is a very real challenge for us. And this isn't, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you can't throw money at this and that sort of thing. I don't believe that's what we're doing. I think this is a smart funding effort to address some concerns and some challenges that we have as a community.
All right, we have a question from our Facebook Live feed. This comes from Quabila. She says, I wanted to ask about proposed projects. Do you all have a running list of projects?
It's been a question that has been asked quite a bit. And there's a lot of projects floating around within the city that's been discussed for years and years. Our group doesn't feel that it's the right thing for us to name what projects we want, because as an individual, I might have a list, he might have a list. I think the important thing is that is the reason that we have put this ordinance in place for the committee. We want the committee to be seated and let the committee to discuss those projects in an open forum, and that way there's a diverse group that's discussing for all of Jonesboro. There are several projects that are on the list on the city that we've talked about before. Obviously, an aquatic center has been one that's talked about forever. I think the closest one is probably 30 minutes away. There's also the bike trail system, the completion addition to the youth sports shooting range that's going up. Also projects in North Jonesboro. There's also been sidewalk projects. Several of these things have been discussed for years and years. This will be a source to help get some of these completed.
All right, and I want to quickly ask this question as we get ready to go to a break. Have you all thought about putting maybe an informal poll on the Team Jonesboro Facebook? Just put up a question, let people respond in the comments. What projects would you like to see? Doesn't necessarily have to be binding or bearing on what the committee decides, but just a way to generate some feedback.
We actually, over the Memorial Day weekend, we did put up a little post like that, just asking people whenever they're out and about this weekend or traveling that let us know what they saw and what they liked and kind of what they think how that could play into what we could have in Jonesboro.
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and get ready to go into a break, and we got more questions that we will ask on the other side of the break. We're speaking with members of Team Jonesboro. So share this video so that other people can leave their feedback as well. We'll be back with more. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Do you struggle to be patient? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. Patience has always been one of my biggest struggles. Can you relate? If so, here are 3 ways to help you practice patience. First, understand what triggers impatience. Impatience often occurs when we don't get what we want when we want it. There are a couple of things that can trigger it. We get impatient when circumstances don't conform to our expectations. Long lines at stores, traffic jams, and flight delays can all be culprits. Impatience also rears its ugly head when people don't conform to our expectations. We get frustrated when people don't behave like we think they should behave. For the rest of the 3 ways to practice patience, visit my blog at markmerrill.com. Remember, your family first.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
Family Minute is brought to you by the Gears Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing students with assistance in their academic and career pursuits. Gears Foundation on Facebook, Gears_Inc. on Instagram, and the Gears Foundation at gmail.com.
KLEK 102.5 FM will host our 2nd annual Juneteenth celebration Saturday, June 15th, starting at 10 a.m. Parker Park Community Center, 1506 North Church Street in Jonesboro. This year's theme is Fulfilling the Dreams of Our Ancestors. There will be speakers providing educational information, our sweet potato pie contest, barbecue cook-off to see who's the best on the grill, head wrap competition, and line dance-off. Prizes will be awarded for each competition. There also will be bounce houses and games for the whole family to enjoy. Special Juneteenth t-shirts are also available for sale. We would love for the community as a whole to be a part of this celebration. If you would like to be a part of our Juneteenth celebration or enter any of our Juneteenth contests, visit our website, klekfm.org, or call us at 870 277-1080.
Meineke of Jonesboro is now Stark's Auto Service, a full-service auto repair and vehicle maintenance center offering engine and transmission repair, brake service, tires, oil changes, and more, performed by ASE certified mechanics. Stark's Auto Service, 2813 South Caraway Road in Jonesboro, 870-204-7112. Stark's Auto Service, Jonesboro.com.
The summer months are the most dangerous time for youth. More are experimenting with alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs during this time, and there is an increased occurrence of accidents and deaths as a result. Be aware and be safe. This message is brought to you by Crowley's Ridge Development Council.
Check out Melvin Williams of the Williams Brothers every Sunday morning from 5 to 7 a.m. here on KLEK for the Melvin Williams Down Home Gospel Radio Show, playing the very best in quartet and inspirational gospel music that you'll love, as well as feature interviews with all of your favorite gospel artists. It's Melvin Williams Down Home Gospel Radio Show, Sundays from 5 to 7 a.m. on KLEK 102.5 FM.
House of Details, located at 3915 East Highland in Jonesboro, is a proud supporter of KLEK, offering detailing on any type of vehicle, basic wash, hand wash, shampoo, interior cleaning, waxing, buffering, headlight restoration, pickup, delivery, and more, with the motto of anything mean we can clean. Details at 870-273-5187. House of Details on Facebook and at klekfm.org.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM with our guests, members of Team Jonesboro. We have Mr. T.J. Thompson, Mr. Brian Richardson, Mrs. Mary Margaret Jackson, and Mr. Jerry Morgan. Before we went to break, Kubila had a series of questions. She asked part one of her question, but before we get into parts 2 and 3, if you have a question or a comment for anyone on Team Jonesboro, you can give us a call at 870-277-1080. Again, that phone number is 870-277-1080, or you can leave your questions or your comments on our Facebook Live feed. Part 2 of Kubila's question is, can proposed projects not be fully outlined and discussed until final reading and potential approval?
Well, the projects, we don't necessarily think it would be fair to fully discuss any projects and to put words in the mouth of the Integrity Oversight Committee. That'll be kind of their job to help flesh out some of these ideas and mold them into actual proposed projects. But what we can do between now and then is to help build up the process and how this is all going to come about, and also the positives that this initiative can bring to the city.
Okay, and part 3 is included in the list. Will the projects be organized by side of town, and can more than one be in the works at the same time so that one group side won't feel neglected?
I think, again, this is going to be up to the Oversight Committee to be discussed. But as far as can many projects be done at once, the question is yes. The good thing is, once this tax is passed, that committee can go right to work, look at the needs of the community, and look at the different projects. There's various different ways to fund these and finance these projects, where we could conceivably do 4 or 5 major projects from the start and get those rolling in all different areas of town. And I think that's the beauty about the Oversight Committee, is they will look at it and see what needs are out there and what areas of Jonesboro can be benefited the most and the first with this first round of funding.
And for the Oversight Committee to remain accountable to the city, they're going to have to develop a public input process so that they get input from all sectors of the community to guide them in terms of principle and action.
And to double back to the last point, I mean, while the exact projects may not be identified by the third reading of this initiative, which would be on July 2nd, I feel very confident that there will be identified well in advance of the election in September, so people will know what they're voting for.
All right. And my next question is, we kind of talked about this a little off the air, but I kind of wanted to bring the discussion on the air. As I mentioned, the North Side, a lot of people get to talk about the North Side, how the North Side needs help with projects to give those people who live on that side of town things that they may not have as easy access to other parts of town. One of the unintended consequences of when you start to have major developments is that property values go up, which I guess isn't a bad thing in itself, but how do you have these projects for the North Side where it has the benefit, but at the same time it doesn't drive the values up so high that your elderly and your lower income people can no longer afford to live on that side of town? Will issues like that be considered not just on the North Side, but on any part of town when projects are considered?
They should be. And as a city planner,
bend the mic down just a little bit.
They should be. And as a person who's educated in city planning and worked as a city planner, that's important to me. Inclusive zoning that allows people to stay where those projects are will prevent that kind of thing. If a good zoning plan is tied to an overall comprehensive plan, which is the vision of the city, if the city wants growth in one area, or they will protect those through proper regulations and ordinances. For instance, not requiring 1 acre developments, or something where they would have large houses, having the proper zoning to ensure that the multifamily housing or whatever is needed for that community is maintained.
Okay. Oh, Jerry, you want to chime in?
We took a trip to Greenville, South Carolina a couple of years ago, and that's a legitimate concern of new projects taking over areas and house values exploding and that sort of thing. I think that one of the main differences that Jonesboro has compared to a lot of communities like that is we are not at a loss for open spaces and open land. We have 80 square miles, and so there's a lot of areas inside the blighted areas that there's perfect spots for community projects to go in, where it probably would not affect it like you would if you were landlocked like most communities, larger communities. So I think that's important to note.
And I think another thing that's important to note, and I certainly don't have the planning background or the finance background that Jerry has, but if you just think about the statement of that these projects could potentially increase property values, that's a statement and a possibility that has not been even a discussion, for decades now in certain neglected areas of town. I think that this initiative, just the fact that we're even having this conversation about how we could potentially make areas of town more desirable to redevelop and renew is a good thing.
I agree that it's good for the conversation, but when I ask these type of questions, these are the things that people are going to be thinking about when they step into the booth on the 10th. How's it going to personally affect them? How's it going to personally affect their neighbors and all of the things that they have going on in their life, both positive and negative? They're going to have all of these things going on in their mind when they decide to either push that yes vote button or that no button.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, one of the other criticisms, again, because I've been in the media, I follow social media all the time, so I've been tracking, the feedback to the story. There's been some criticism saying that if all of this comes to pass, you're going to have entities funded by city government that's going to be competing with private-owned business and making it tougher for private businesses to compete because they'll be doing some of the same things. What is your response to that?
I spent a lot of time doing some research on that, and I think that's just completely false. I think that's just propaganda that's being put out there by a certain group that just wants to do everything they can to keep this from passing. It just makes no sense. On the youth sporting range that's been discussed, the economic impact of that would be significant for our area. Just this weekend, I think it was the West Side School that competed and won. Congratulations to West Side School in a trap shooting competition. And I think they were in Jacksonville, and there was 500 different schools that went to 4 different regional areas. And just think, a perfect example of that is Joe Mack Campbell Park. How many baseball complexes has that put out of business? None. Actually, there's been several that have been popped up. There was one recently that just started about 6 months ago south of town, and they see it's a private business that was spun off of baseball, and a lot of these kids started playing Joe Mack Campbell league ball when they were 3 years old. And right now that complex gets almost 150 kids a day through the doors. Practicing down there, and these are kids that from all different backgrounds, all different socioeconomic backgrounds, that if they weren't down there every afternoon playing ball, where would they be? And so just the thought of that these projects aren't going to help Jonesboro and compete with the private sector, that's just in my opinion, is just false.
All right, and Jerry, while I got you on the mic, I want you to respond to something else, and I want everybody else to chime in as well. There have been some people who said that this whole Team Jonesboro proposal is just something that is being put forth by people who have means, people who are more well-to-do, whereas the financial burden is going to fall on people on the lower end of the income scale, that they will be the main ones to bear the tax burden, whereas the people who have more economic means, it won't affect them as much. What is your all's response to that?
Well, first off, I think the people that know me and know me from my background and my history know that I came from not a well-to-do family, and I'm proud of that fact. I grew up in Harrisburg. My mom put me through school. I worked 2 jobs to get through school. I worked 2 jobs for several years after I got into banking. I'm proud of that fact. I'm proud that I got a degree at ASU. I'm proud that I was able to go to ASU. I'm proud that my mom supported me through ASU. So I think when people start throwing rocks of just, hey, this is just a bunch of rich people, this is my way to give back to Jonesboro, and I think the people that know me know that that's the reason I'm involved right here. I could easily just said, hey, I don't want to be involved in anything for the city. I'll just go to work and spend all my time at work. But this is my way to give back to Jonesboro that's been so good to me and my family. So as far as the economic burden, we understand that. We understand that no tax is good for everybody, but we also think that it's important to note that what are we going to get in return here? Do we want to see a safer Jonesboro? Do we want to see our fire departments get better, our police departments get better? Like you said, there were 10 officers out right now. Elliott said that right now, before those 10 were out, he could employ 30 more officers.
Yeah, I remember he said that on Community Conversation when we had him.
And so,
and that's 30 jobs right there.
30 jobs. What will that do? I mean, the last shootings we had over the last week, if we had 30 more officers patrolling the streets, could we have prevented those? You see so much of this where people are taking advantage of Jonesboro. They're coming in on the weekends. They're coming in from outside of Jonesboro, taking advantage of our citizens, taking advantage of our teens on the drug-related issues, trying to perpetuate that crisis. What can we do as a city to help that get better? And also, I think it's important, these projects that we're going to build, they're going to help all of Jonesboro. They're going to help all the students from all our schools. If you get those kids involved, what will that do going forward? And what's that going to make Jonesboro look like 10 or 15 years from now?
All right. I thought Mrs. Jackson had something. She was kind of looking at me, so.
No, I'm good.
Well, okay.
Just to kind of add to that, nothing taxes and burdens low-income families more in Jonesboro than crime. Low-income families are much more likely to be a victim of crime, and that has both financial and social ramifications to it. The simple matter is that this initiative will increase public safety, it will help reduce crime, and it will provide low-cost public amenities and things to do for low-income families. So, perfect example, my daughter, she goes to Valley View Excel Daycare. It's a great daycare, free plug. But this summer, they are going out of town 7 times. 6 times to a water park, and they went to Memphis last week to a children's museum. That is something that a lot of families, the low income, just can't afford to drive to go do. This initiative will help bring these things here, so families don't have to suffer the burden of having to drive 50, 60, 70 miles to enjoy things that we should have here.
All righty. First, I'm going to get into the Facebook shout-outs, and then we have a couple more questions. Shout out to Bo Mr. Biz, Becky Wimpy, Jane Butler Richardson, Rebecca Laura Evans, and Andy Shatley to get into our questions. But the question is, will you partner with existing organizations such as the North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative, the Hub, the United Way, and others? Anybody?
I think the answer is yes. We're going to expect feedback from all those groups in these open community sessions talking about the projects. And the good thing is, too, this money will be the core funding for a lot of these projects. The important part is, too, if you have that core funding in place, there's a significant amount of grants out there. There's a significant amount of private donations that's available out there at naming rights for facilities, and we're going to be asking everybody for all those. I mean, this is something that we can really go and leverage up the projects to build more and more. If we can get somebody to come in and help offset some of these projects for the naming rights, that's just money that will go straight back in the community. There are a lot of grants nationwide that are willing to fund a lot of these things, but they're not going to come in and do 100% of the projects. They just don't. They want matching funds, and if we don't have that core funding, we can't apply for those.
All right. And speaking of funding, I did have this question. This is something else I also seen. Why 1 cent? What went into determining that the tax should be 1 cent as opposed to ½ cent, 3/4, 1.5? What research went into that?
Well, when we were looking into these projects and this initiative, what we came to the conclusion was that we have to generate enough revenue to be able to make an actual difference. And on average, annually, Jonesboro brings in about $18 million. Just from just the fire side, they have immediate needs. If they need to build 2 new fire stations yesterday in order to help keep our low insurance rating here, that the police have very real needs that have actual dollar amounts attached to them, and I think that and I'll leave that to the fire chief and the police chief to spell out the exacts on those needs. But we came to the conclusion that in order to raise enough money that we need to raise to help bring these projects here, that a ½ cent was more than fair. Does that fund everything, single thing, to make Jonesboro a city of rainbows and Fantasyland? No, but it gets us going down. It gets us going down the path to helping make this a stronger community, and it gets the ball moving in the right direction.
All right. Did anyone else want to chime in on that before we went to the next question? All right. If approved and the projects are set, will you all encourage for there to be local citizens and companies to be used for these projects instead of outside sources?
Yeah, yes. I mean, we would want this to be an economic driver for our local businesses, period.
Okay, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. All right, so will Team Jonesboro work with Arkansas State University?
Absolutely, that's the future of our city. We lose those students every year. They go to other cities within the state and other cities in the country because Jonesboro doesn't have the quality of life that they're looking for. That's been polled by the university. That's been proven by studies looking at the millennial and Y generation age groups, and we want to be competitive. We want to be a sustainable city. We want to keep our population. We want to keep our best. We want to keep our brightest, and we generate them yearly at the university, and we lose them yearly.
Has there been consideration to possibly having 1 or 2 A-State students on the what's the name of the group again? The advisory,
the Integrity Oversight Council.
I need to write it down. See, I told you. Remember what I said off air? If I don't write it down, I won't remember. But is there consideration to having maybe 1 or 2 A-State students on that Integrity Oversight Council?
Yeah, I think there has been, or possibly somebody that's been involved in A-State that's still a part of the community. Maybe somebody that's been a leader at ASU and now is graduated and living in our community too, that still has a pulse. So there's a lot of different options there.
Well, absolutely, and I think it's once again important if this does pass to have as much representation as possible, because like she said, Arkansas State is the future, and those students will use these amenities as well. And Kabila said a question about the youth, which I think I did ask.
Can I jump in
Sure.
real quick here? One thing that is kind of a theme that has run through several of these questions is if this is going to work, it's going to require people to think big picture. Talking about which groups are included. Is Arkansas State involved in the conversation? These other entities with different things going on in the community. If we don't look big picture and think much more down the road than what's immediately right in front of our face with this, then really this has big challenges. And I think so far there's been that push. Mary Margaret's talking about strategic planning with zoning ordinances and things like that. This could really be not only a catalyst for the specific things that are listed in the ordinance, but this could be a major shift in our community on so many fronts. Not only would we be infusing a huge amount of capital into safety and quality of life, but having this council and having these funds available will put us in a position to think long term, to ask ourselves what we want to be, where we want to go, what we want our community to look like 5, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And this could be a huge driving force for conversations that are outside of just this tax and just these monies.
And I just want to reply to that. I think from what I've been reading, there is a lot of support for this. I think there are a number of people who genuinely want this to pass, and I think by them asking questions, they want to make sure that they have a seat at the table, that they have a voice, and that this capital is used to where it will be a big benefit for the big picture, for the long term. I don't think it's necessarily people looking for reasons to shoot it down. It's I think people want their confidence boosted there. They want to be reassured that, yes, I want to support this, but I want to make sure that the big picture is realized. We're going to have to leave it right there. We're going to get ready to go into our second break, but don't go anywhere. We will be back with more of Team Jonesboro. We are still taking your calls and taking your questions and your comments. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. For many of us, our cash flow issues are not because we're overspending, but because we are too lax about allowing other people to spend our money. Track your spending for a month and put a special focus on money you're spending to provide for the wants and needs of others. In other words, buying things they should do without or provide for themselves. For example, check for unnecessary spending on minor children. Food, water, clothing, shelter, and related utilities. These are the basics you should be spending your money on. Also check for lending to and spending on people, especially friends and relatives who think you just have it like that. The bottom line, no one has the right to spend your money. Don't allow others to drain income from you out of guilt to prove your friendship or as a show of love. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization focused on joy in our sisterhood, power in our voice, and service in our hearts. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Money Matters is brought to you by the Gears Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing students with assistance in their academic and career pursuits. Gears Foundation on Facebook, Gears_Inc. on Instagram, and the Gears Foundation at gmail.com.
On June 4th, 2019, the Craighead County chapter of the NAACP presented a proposal to the Jonesboro City Council Public Works Committee to rename Johnson Avenue in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The renaming would affect Johnson from Dan Avenue to the Jonesboro city limit near Farville Curve. If enacted, there will be a 2-year transition period where both names, Johnson and MLK, will be recognized. The proposal was referred to the entire Jonesboro City Council, which will take up the proposal at their next meeting, scheduled for Tuesday, June 18, 2019, at the Jonesboro City Council chambers. Those wishing to speak in support or opposition of the proposal should arrive at the meeting by 4 p.m. to ensure a seat, as capacity will quickly be reached.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life, such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
Anointed Pro Lube, 1216 East Johnson Avenue, serves the Jonesboro community inspired by Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. They offer brake service, oil changes, tire plugs, basic tune-ups, wiper blade changes, bulb changes, and coolant system flushes. Open Monday, Thursday, and Friday 8 to 5, Tuesday and Wednesday 8 to 4, and Saturday 8 to 2. More information 870-520-5039.
The McDaniel Law Firm, 400 South Main Street in Jonesboro, is a firm believer in justice and equality for the minority community. The McDaniel Law Firm has fought for our rights for over 44 years. The McDaniel Law Firm offers legal help for wrongful death as well as trucking and automobile accidents. Bobby and Brett McDaniel are available for a free consultation at 870-336-4747 or at www.mcdaniellawyers.com.
The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on January 1st, 1977, originally serving Blytheville, Arkansas, and now serving Jonesboro, Blytheville, Osceola, Marion, and West Memphis, Arkansas. Today, the chapter continues to make an impact by focusing on Alpha's national community outreach initiatives such as My Brother's Keeper, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, Go to High School, Go to College, Project Alpha, Boy Scouts, and the March of Dimes. The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is committed to Alpha's mission of developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy to the community. More information about the Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is available at MOL Alphas on Facebook or via email at molalphas@gmail.com.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM with our guests, members of Team Jonesboro. We have Mr. TJ Thompson, Mr. Brian Richardson, Mrs. Mary Margaret Jackson, and Mr. Jerry Morgan. So we'll just check the Facebook comments, see if we had any questions. We do not, but we do have a shout out to Angela Artis. All right, so this is our last segment. So is there anything that you guys want to talk about that we did not possibly get into on the previous segments?
Well, with this is our second time here on the show, and we've been, I think we've worked really, really hard within the community to get ourselves out there, to be very open and transparent with the city readings. You know, one thing I'll note, you know, a lot of ordinances at times they've suspended the different readings and tried to push them through as emergency clauses, which is fine. There's certain instances where that's needed. We made it very clear on this one that we wanted to make sure it went through all three readings, Finance Committee, so that's going to be 4 different inputs, public inputs that it goes in front of, getting the public's input just to show that we want it to go on the ballot for the people to decide. So I think it's very important to show, for us to prove that we're trying to be very open and transparent in this process. I will ask you, we've talked and you followed this from the start. What's your thoughts and concerns on this? And what's the feedback that you're getting?
Well, and before I answer that, of course, I have to give the disclaimer again. These thoughts are my own personally. They do not necessarily reflect KLK, the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters, donors, or sponsors. But I've always felt that diversity is the most important thing, that we have a seat at the table, because what I have seemed to notice is a lot of times underrepresented communities, people came to, especially when it's election time and people won't vote, that they promise things and don't deliver on the promise. So I think it's important that Team Jonesboro makes a good faith effort to reach the underrepresented community. Not just showing up on this program, but showing up at the churches, showing up at the community events. By the way, KLK does have our Juneteenth event this Saturday, but showing up where the people are, not just with the African American community, the Hispanic community, the low income people. Show up where they are. Don't just be in safe spaces or at your jobs. Meet people where they are to ensure that diversity is there. Also, on the flip side, when Team Jonesboro or any group reaches out to the community, we need to be willing to have conversations with them. Even if we don't agree with what they stand for, don't still hear them out. Give them the opportunity to earn our respect, earn our votes, earn our trust. Don't just dismiss them immediately out the gate. Hear what they have to say. Then if they break their promises, then, yeah, you can tell them to kick rocks then. Yes.
And I want to just add to that. Look, we are willing to come speak with any group at any time to kind of help to pitch our vision of the Team Jonesboro initiative. I think this is a good time to point out that if you are with a group or are with a any kind of organization, and you would like for the Team Jonesboro crew, team, whatever you want to call it, the movement to come make our pitch and proposal in person, to reach out to us. The easiest way to do that is either through our website, which is teamjonesboro.com, or to send us a direct message on our Facebook page, which is the Team Jonesboro Facebook. I'm sure most people listening probably already know where that's at. And or to, if you see Jerry or Mary Margaret or TJ or myself or Scott out, or if you know us personally, just shoot us a text message.
All right, say, we got 2.5 minutes. I hate to cut y'all, but I do need to ask this before we get off there. As you all know, at the same meeting in which this will be discussed, there is also the proposal for the renaming of Johnson Avenue after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And again, these are my personal thoughts. I believe these two do go hand in hand. And just like the Team Jonesboro proposal, there is significant opposition to the MLK renaming proposal. It is my concern that if the MLK proposal is voted down, then you're going to have a population that is probably going to be less likely to be willing to support Team Jonesboro, because it's going to come across as, well, people couldn't be right or wrong. People couldn't be bothered with this, so why should we be bothered with that? 1.5 minutes, give your response.
Well, while Team Jonesboro as a ballot question committee can only advocate for what our actual mission statement and legal mission statement is, which is advocate for a 1% quality of life initiative, what we can do is 100% support, any effort that will bring unity to Jonesboro. We've got to tear down some of these invisible silos and walls that are sadly dividing our city. From a Team Jonesboro perspective, what we are doing is encouraging all of our members and supporters and followers that if they support the MLK name change, to reach out to their council person and tell them that. Come to the public hearings and speak about it. Those things matter. I do think that regardless if the name change is approved by council or not, that well, let's put it this way: if the name change is approved by the city council, the Team Jonesboro initiative and we'll do everything in our power to help to redefine, rebrand, and renew the potential MLK Avenue and make it a showcase for what smart planning, smart growth, and urban renewal can do in our city.
All right, 20 seconds. Anybody else want to close it out?
Give us your opinion. Come to us. This isn't lip service. We want to hear from you. We want to be involved. This is an opportunity for the community to get together and to learn from each other.
Team Jonesboro on Facebook. Hit them up. This is KLEK 102.5 FM. God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower, this is KLEK.